I'm in the Eze Village, which is just outside of Nice in the south of France. I'll explore the village, show you the gardens, and by the end I'll tell you if it's actually worth the visit. Subscribe, let's get into it. So today, let's explore the Eze Village, probably the most dramatic medieval town you'll ever see, perched on a cliff in the south of France. Now, if you've done any research about France, you'll hear a lot about this place online. The stone streets, the sweeping Mediterranean views, and that fairy tale label that everyone loves to throw around. But I wanted to see for myself if it really lives up to the hype. Or is it just another tourist trap with a good Instagram filter? Now, I wanted to show you the real side of these places, not just the picture-perfect highlights, but also what it actually feels like to be there and, just walk around in the streets. Oh, and other than being popular on TikTok, I wanted to know what this place is famous for. What is the history of the Eze Village? So let's take a stroll through the Eze Village. If you find this video useful, subscribe. Now, I should have filmed it, but getting up to the Eze Village from Nice was an absolute, it was chaos. There was so many people trying to get up here. So bear in mind, if you're going to take the bus, be there early, and there's going to be a queue, most likely, depending on when you go. But if you're there on a clear day, it is totally worth it. See, wandering around Eze feels like you've stumbled upon the set of a fantasy film. The streets are steep and cobblestoned, curling between honey-colored stone houses, and the outsides are just covered in vines. Now, one thing to bear in mind is this place is pretty touristy. It's kind of like one of those towns that, because it's so beautiful, it's become a tourist hotspot, so it feels less like you're walking amongst locals and more like, you're with a bunch of tourists. But if you don't mind that, you're going to have a great time. The views are absolutely insane. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video where I go through the Cactus Garden, because it's probably one of the nicest views I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, one of the things that makes the Eze Village so famous is that it's on the top of this hill. So I don't know if you know this about hills, but they're pretty steep. So you're going to be walking up a lot of stairs and then walking down a lot of stairs. It's a very up and down kind of village. So that's one thing to bear in mind. You're doing a lot of walking. Speaking of getting around, there's no cars in the Eze Village. There is down at the bottom of the village. You can find a perfumery down there and some other shops. But when you're actually at the top there, walking around, it's very steep. Definitely not room for cars or bikes or anything like that. You might be wondering, hey, why did they build a village like that? That seems kind of impractical. Well, the Eze Village has been perched high above the Mediterranean for centuries. Its origins actually stretch back before the Romans, when the ancient Ligurians built fortified settlements here to watch over the coastline. And like you'll see later, you really can see the entire coastline from up there. And because of this position, Eze was always a place of strategic importance. You can get these wild panoramic views in every direction. It was absolutely incredible. And because of these panoramic views, it made it the perfect spot to defend against invaders or pirates. So over time, it's passed through the hands of Greeks, Romans, Moors, and eventually the French, and each have left their mark. And by the late 1800s, Eze actually had faded into a bit of a forgotten hilltop town. But that completely changed when artists, writers, and eventually tourists started rediscovering its magic. So today, it's actually one of the most visited villages in all of the French Riviera. Now, speaking of you visiting this place, you're probably going to want to eat food. And when you're walking around, there's a lot of fancy schmancy restaurants, but what if you're here hypothetically on very much of a budget? Well, don't worry, I found this incredible cafe. So we sit down and order a sandwich, but they also gave us this bowl of olives. See, olives are actually grown in the region of Eze. Hence, there are a lot of places that sell olive oil and olives and olive-based products. In fact, the whole region actually has a long tradition of olives. Some of the trees are centuries old. And Brian Johnson will be happy to hear this. Local olive oil is actually used in nearly every single dish here. Alright, so the sandwich arrives, and I'm kind of disappointed. It looks quite basic. You got cheese, you got egg, you got rocket and tomato. And some sauce. It's pretty basic, but I can tell you, this is one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life. I'm looking at this footage right now and thinking I should fly back to Eze just to eat this sandwich.
Let's try.
Oh my god. And then I awkwardly continued filming myself eat a sandwich. Now, after you've eaten, you've got the energy to visit probably one of the most beautiful views ever in the world in history of all time. This is, of course, the Cactus Garden. So we're at the exotic gardens now, and it's absolutely beautiful here with one of the best views that I've ever seen. It's absolutely insane. Now, I want to quickly point out there is an entrance fee, but it is totally worth it. I think it was just the most insanely beautiful views ever. Now look, they can pretend we're going to look at the cacti. We don't care about the cacti, we're there for the view. Actually, speaking of the cacti, so a little fun fact. The Cactus Garden actually originated after World War II when Mayor André Gianton, along with Jean Gustard from Monaco's exotic garden, hauled soil and plants up this steep cliff by hand in order to transform the fortress ruins into this living showpiece. But hey, I just want to be shown a piece of that Mediterranean Sea. Now this view is 429 meters tall, so this medieval castle is pretty high up. You can actually see all the way to Nice, and you can see Saint Jean Cap Ferrat, which is another place that we visited, so subscribe so you don't miss that. Another incredible sight from up here is actually the bridge that you go over in order to get to the town. This bridge actually has a bit of a local legend around it. Pause the video here if you want to read that. Now, whilst we're still looking at these beautiful gardens and this incredible view, let me tell you if it's actually worth visiting Eze, as it is quite difficult to get here. First off, the pros, the reasons you should go. A is these breathtaking views here. You're going to get some of the best panoramic views of the French Riviera. Whether you're standing in the Cactus Garden or just wandering around the narrow lanes, it is truly a photographer's dream. I took just an endless amount of photos. Number 2, the unique medieval atmosphere. This village feels like a real-life fairy tale with, the cobbled streets, the stone archways, and the really old, beautiful architecture. It is one of the most authentically preserved medieval towns in the region, and it truly is gorgeous. Number 3 is the artistic and relaxed vibe. Despite the crowds, there are hidden corners, art galleries, and quiet spots to soak up the atmosphere. Plus, that local food is amazing. If you like olive oil, you are going to love the dishes here. Alright, now the cons. It can be pretty crowded. Eze is on pretty much everyone's itinerary when visiting the French Riviera, so it can get very busy, especially during summer and midday when the tour groups arrive. For us, getting the public transport bus in the morning was an absolute nightmare, so the earlier you can go in the morning, the better. Number 2, a downside is there's a lot of uphill walking. The whole village is built on a steep hill, so just be prepared for a lot of stairs. It's not going to be the easiest place for anyone with mobility issues. And number 3, look, the cafes and shops and restaurants here are quite pricey because, look, you don't have many options when you're up here, so they can kind of charge whatever they want. However, with all of that being said, I still do think this is well worth the visit, especially if you're in Nice, then this is an incredible day trip. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out my last video where I explore the medieval towns near Colmar, then click on this video here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in this video.